Margaret clutched her husband's arm as the world dissolved around them. One moment, they'd been walking through their quiet neighborhood in Ohio, discussing what to have for dinner. The next, a blinding light had swallowed everything. When Margaret's vision cleared, she found herself standing on a platform of gleaming metal that seemed to pulse with an inner luminescence. Beside her, Walter was already on his feet, his weathered face etched with confusion. "Maggie," he whispered, using the nickname he'd called her for 53 years. "Where are we?" Margaret looked around, her heart pounding. They stood in an enormous chamber with walls that curved upward into infinity. Strange symbols floated in the air like holographic projections, shifting and rearranging themselves in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Through massive windows, if they were windows, she could see the infinite void of space, punctuated by distant stars and nebulae that swirled with impossible colors. "I don't know," Margaret said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." Walter would have laughed at the old joke under normal circumstances, but nothing about this was normal. He took a tentative step forward, and the floor beneath his feet rippled like water, sending waves of light radiating outward. A voice spoke then, not through their ears, but directly into their minds. It was ancient and vast, carrying the weight of eons. "Humans, you have been selected." Margaret's knees nearly buckled, but Walter's hand found hers, squeezing tight. "Selected for what?" he called out, his voice echoing in the impossible space. "The trial of ascension! Your species shows promise. You two shall be the first." Before either of them could respond, the floor beneath them erupted with light. Margaret screamed as energy coursed through her body, setting every nerve ending ablaze. It wasn't pain exactly, it was transformation. She could feel something fundamental changing within her, her cells restructuring, her DNA rewriting itself at a molecular level. Beside her, Walter was experiencing the same phenomenon. His body glowed like a star, and Margaret watched in awe as the deep wrinkles on his face smoothed slightly as his stooped posture straightened. But it wasn't youth returning. It was something else, something more. When the light finally faded, they collapsed onto the platform, gasping for breath. Margaret's hands trembled as she looked at them. They appeared the same, yet everything felt different. She could sense the energy in the air, could feel the electromagnetic fields running through the station's walls. It was as if her perception had expanded beyond the normal human spectrum. "Walter," she breathed, "do you feel that?" He nodded slowly, his eyes wide. "I feel everything." "The gift has been granted," the voice intoned. "You now possess what your kind would call superpowers. Abilities drawn from the fundamental forces of the universe." Margaret tried to stand, and suddenly found herself floating 3 feet above the ground. She gasped, flailing momentarily before Walter reached up and gently pulled her down. But his touch sent a shock through her. Not painful, but electric, charged with power. "Sorry," he muttered, pulling his hand back. "I didn't mean to—" A panel in the wall exploded outward with a metallic shriek. Both of them whirled around to see mechanical constructs pouring through the breach, angular insectoid things with multiple limbs and glowing red sensors. "The trial begins," the voice announced with what might have been satisfaction. "Survive, and your species shall be elevated. Fail, and humanity's potential dies with you." The first construct lunged at Margaret. Instinct took over. She raised her hand, and a wave of invisible force erupted from her palm. The machine flew backward, slamming into 3 others and crumpling them like aluminum foil. Margaret stared at her hand in shock. "I did that?" "Maggie, behind you!" Walter shouted. She spun, but Walter was already moving. He swept his arm in a wide arc, and the air itself seemed to ignite. A wall of flame roared to life, incinerating the approaching machines in seconds. The heat should have been unbearable, but Margaret felt only a comfortable warmth. How did you—" she started, but more constructs were emerging from the walls now, dozens of them, their mechanical skittering filling the chamber with an ominous chorus. They fought side by side, husband and wife, just as they'd faced every challenge in their long marriage. Margaret discovered she could manipulate gravity, crushing machines or sending them spinning helplessly into space. Walter commanded fire and energy, his blasts precise despite his trembling hands, trembling not from age now, but from the raw power coursing through him. A larger construct emerged, easily 3 times the size of the others. It moved with terrible purpose, its weapons charging with ominous light. "Together," Margaret said, reaching for Walter's hand. The moment their hands touched, something extraordinary happened. Their powers merged, amplified, becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. A sphere of pure energy formed between them, growing larger and larger until it filled half the chamber. They released it. The explosion of light and force was tremendous. When it cleared, every construct in the chamber had been reduced to molten slag. The walls themselves bore scorch marks, but the station held. Silence fell, broken only by their heavy breathing. "Impressive," the voice said, and for the first time it sounded almost pleased. "You fight not as individuals, but as one. This is the strength of humanity, your bonds, your connections. Other species have failed this trial because they could not set aside their egos, but you two—" The chamber began to shift around them. The oppressive atmosphere lightened, and the hostile architecture transformed into something almost welcoming. "You have passed. Your species shall be gifted with knowledge, technology, and the potential for ascension. But more importantly, you have proven that humanity's greatest power is not individual strength, but the strength you find in each other." Margaret looked at Walter, seeing the same mixture of exhaustion, exhilaration, and love reflected in his eyes that she felt in her own heart. "Take us home," Walter said firmly. "We've got grandkids to spoil and a garden that needs tending. You can send your fancy gifts through the mail." The voice actually laughed, a sound like distant thunder across a cosmic plain. "As you wish, champions of Earth. But know this, you carry the powers now. They are yours to keep, yours to use. Humanity's age of miracles has begun." The light returned, gentler this time. As their neighborhood materialized around them once more, Margaret squeezed Walter's hand. "Nobody's going to believe this," she said. Walter grinned. "Then let's show them what an old married couple can really do." And somewhere in the cosmos, ancient beings watched with interest as Earth's newest heroes went home to change the world, one small miracle at a time.